A headline from the Washington Post for every day of January 2023. Inside Louisiana's forced prison labor and a failed overhaul attempt. Dozens of Russian soldiers killed in massive Donetsk missile strike. McCarthy's bid in jeopardy as House votes for Speaker. House holding fourth vote for Speaker. McCarthy makes fresh concessions to try to woo hard-right Republicans. McCarthy vows progress as Speaker voting enters fourth day. After historic stalemate, McCarthy sworn in as House Speaker. Immigration pivot shows Biden facing hard reality of border politics. Lula promises prosecution in aftermath of Brazil Capitol insurrection. Pentagon to train Ukraine on Patriot missile system in Oklahoma. Flights resume after FAA outage causes mass delays. Biden's classified documents explained what to know about the investigation. U.S. to begin extraordinary measures to stay under debt limit. Major Ukrainian cities hit by explosions, at least 5 killed in Dnipro. Harbor City Capital called George Santos a perfect fit. The SEC said the investment firm was a fraud. New details link George Santos to cousin of sanctioned Russian oligarch. January 6 panel downplayed social media failures despite finding stunning details. False election claims behind plot to shoot at Democrats' homes in New Mexico, police say. U.S. begins extraordinary steps to avert historic federal default. Russia's state nuclear company aids war effort, leading to calls for sanctions. How Jack Smith charged Kosovo's president and blew up a Trump meeting. Gunman still at large after California shooting leaves 10 dead. Police hunt for answers after massacre at California dance studio. 7 dead in Half Moon Bay as California confronts another mass killing. U.S. will supply M1 tanks to Ukraine as Germany approves Leopards. Recession fears linger despite U.S. economy growing 2.1% last year. Judge releases evidence, video footage in attack on Paul Pelosi. Video shows brutal police beating. Shortness of breath, how police first described what happened to Tyree Nichols. Some Democrats are worried about Harris's political prospects. Colorado River states poised to miss deadline for water cut plan. California won't sign on. A headline for every day of February 2023. Alleged $500 million Ponzi scheme preyed on Mormons. It ended with FBI gunfire. GOP-led House ousts Rep. Ilhan Omar from committee. Pentagon expects alleged Chinese spy balloon to stay over U.S. for a few days. Biden's diplomatic dance with China grows more tense after balloon incident. Few Americans are excited about a Biden-Trump rematch post-ABC poll finds. Quake kills over 2,300 in Turkey and Syria. Rescue teams race against the cold. Biden mixes bipartisanship and defiance in a speech marked by back and forth with GOP. U.S. declassifies balloon intelligence, calls out China for spying. FBI searches Mike Pence's Indiana house for classified documents. Rescues against the odds bring glimmer of hope as death toll tops 25,000. After helping princes rise, Trump and Kushner benefit from Saudi funds. Trump campaign paid researchers to prove 2020 fraud, but kept finding secret. Gunman kept lying about owning a gun after 2019 weapons charge, father says. Warming seas are carving into massive Antarctic glacier that could trigger sea level rise. Georgia grand jury says perjury may have been committed in Trump election probe. Fox News hosts and executives privately doubted 2020 conspiracies shared on air. Here's what the Ohio derailed train was carrying and what was burned. Putin, Tsar with no empire, needs military victory for his own survival. On surprise trip to Kiev, Biden vows enduring support. Russia has committed crimes against humanity, Biden says in Poland speech. Conflict concentrated along a 600-mile front line between Ukrainian and Russian forces. Disillusionment with U.S. fuels a deepening global divide over Ukraine war. Leaders recall dismay and fury as war began. From Palm Beach to Staten Island, DeSantis makes 2024 moves on Trump's turf. How a small-town train derailment erupted into a culture battle. Emboldened by its majority, House GOP turns up heat on federal workers. Justices question Biden's authority on student loan forgiveness. A headline for every day of March 2023. Havana syndrome not caused by energy weapon or foreign foe, review finds. Years of warning and inaction in Turkish city destroyed by earthquakes. Alex Murdaugh sentenced to life in prison and murder of wife and son. California was hit with 12 feet of snow. Is it enough to ease the drought? A mile-long line for free food offers a warning as COVID benefits end. Slavery was wrong. Columbus's Journal, 6 things some educators won't teach. Fed may need more aggressive interest rate hikes, Powell says. Louisville police engaged in pattern of misconduct, Justice Department finds. Biden calls for trillions in new spending and higher taxes in budget. Silicon Valley Bank closed, fueling worry about risk to broader financial market. Silicon Valley Bank collapse leaves startups scrambling to pay workers. Memphis Police Academy cut corners while scrambling to hire, officers say. The banking system is safe, Biden says after failure of Silicon Valley Bank. Russian jets force down U.S. surveillance drone over Black Sea. Stocks tumble as Credit Suisse woes add to banking sector jitters. Poland says it will be first NATO country to give fighter jets to Ukraine. After Silicon Valley Bank collapse, Washington asks, is it to blame? Big banks may get bigger as crisis swamps too big to fail worries. International condemnation of Putin grows as he pays surprise visit to Mariupol. Xi and Putin open talks in Russia, trade compliments amid war in Ukraine. U.S. could sanction Chinese firms if Beijing sends arms to Russia. Weighing bank distress and inflation, Feds faces next rate hike. TikTok CEO faces intense grilling as lawmakers question ties to China. Recent banking turmoil is spurring many to move their money. Tornadoes killed 24 in a 100-mile path through Mississippi and Alabama. Disaster declared for Mississippi as 26 killed, tornado warnings issued in Georgia. 3 children and 3 adults dead in Nashville school shooting. What damage can an AR-15 do to a human body? A rare look. How a change in law could provide crucial seconds to survive a mass shooting. Why do Americans own AR-15s? We ask gun owners for their top reasons. Trump and advisors caught off guard by indictment. A headline for every day of April 2023. Shocked and defiant, how Trump is responding to unprecedented indictment. Death toll rises to 26 after storms pummel South, Midwest, and Mid-Atlantic. A web of trenches shows Russia fears losing Crimea. Trump about to surrender to authorities and face charges. Trump faces narrow charges as prosecutor alleges broad scheme to undermine vote. Tennessee House to vote on expelling 3 Democrats who joined gun reform protests. Tennessee vote marks latest GOP move to stifle dissent, experts say. Dueling ruling on abortion pill tee up collision between federal judges and FDA. Russia nearly shot down British spy plane near Ukraine, leaked document says. 4 killed, shooter dead in attack at Louisville bank building, police say. Popular handgun fires without anyone pulling the trigger, victims say. Vulnerability in China's labs allowed pathogens to escape, and it could happen again. Suspected leaker of top-secret documents identified. Suspect charged in leak of classified documents. Taiwan highly vulnerable to Chinese air attack, leaked documents show. Russians boasted that just 1% of fake social profiles are caught, leak shows. Fiscal crisis nears as McCarthy takes debt ceiling plan to Wall Street. An intellectual battle rages. Is the U.S. in a proxy war with Russia? Trudeau told NATO that Canada will never meet spending goal, leak shows. SpaceX's uncrewed Starship explodes minutes after liftoff. Kremlin tries to build anti-war coalition in Germany, documents show. FBI leak investigators home in on members of private Discord server. In wake of Ralph Yarl shooting, black teens face fear and resignation. Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News after Dominion lawsuit disclosures. Biden announces re-election bid, saying he wants to finish the job. House to debate debt ceiling bill after middle of the night changes. Amid new recession fears, experts see a pivotal moment. Fed says it must strengthen banking rules after SVB's collapse. Regulators likely to seize First Republic Bank. With debt bill adopted, far-right House Republicans ready for fiscal war. A headline for every day of May 2023. First Republic Bank seized and sold in a deal aimed at shoring up the industry. Democrats begin process to bypass GOP House leaders and raise debt limit. Fed raises rates by 0.25 percentage points, says this hike is the last for now. Henry Enrique Tarrio and 4 other Proud Boys guilty of seditious conspiracy. Judicial activists directed fees to Clarence Thomas's wife, urged no mention of Ginny. Charles III and Camilla crowned amid fanfare. Ukraine has exceeded expectations for 15 months. Now, senior leaders are trying to lower those hopes. Texas gunman's white supremacist views eyed as possible motive. Women should start getting mammograms at 40, panel says in a shift in guidance. Rep Santos charged with financial crimes including fraud, theft of public funds. Texas uses aggressive tactics to arrest migrants as Title 42 ends. Biden faces major challenges with the end of the Title 42 border policy. Alleged Discord leaker fixated on guns and envisioned race war. Football bonded them, its violence tore them apart. Wagner chief offered to give Russian troops locations to Ukraine, leak says. Cameras bought with federal grants are used to evict residents of public housing. Facing severe water cuts, states near historic deal to save Colorado River. Justices rule for Google and Twitter over liability for content posted by users. Debt ceiling negotiations between White House and GOP are paused. There's no final debt ceiling deal, but already lawmakers don't like it. Biden calls GOP proposals unacceptable as debt ceiling deadline looms. EU's record $1.3 billion fine for Meta could have broad effects on U.S. businesses. Texas pushes church into state with bills on schools and 10 commandments. Post-analysis finds new factors in Uvalde massacre that led to 77-minute delay. Democrats' worry grows over White House approach to debt talks. Israeli agents conduct targeted killings in civilian area, killing a child. U.S. leaders gamble with world's most trusted asset in debt showdown. Biden and McCarthy reach agreement in principle to raise debt limit. For COVID long haulers, the pandemic is far from over. Drone attacks shock Moscow after new missile strike on Kiev. House to vote on debt deal as leaders scramble for support. A headline for every day of June 2023. Senate racing to pass debt ceiling bill ahead of default deadline. U.S. employers added 339,000 jobs in May and unemployment rose. You don't have another option. Inside the Biden-McCarthy debt ceiling deal. F-16 jets scrambled to intercept Cessna, causing sonic boom in D.C. Cessna crashes in Virginia. NATO vows to defend every inch of its territory, but that strategy is a work in progress. U.S. had intelligence of detailed Ukrainian plan to attack Nord Stream pipeline. Eastern U.S. air quality reaches harmful levels as Canadian wildfires rage. Supreme Court says Alabama must draw a new voting map favorable to black residents. Trump case unfolds, evidence revealed. Indictment says Trump lied to keep classified secrets. This country backed every president for 2 decades. What about 2024? Trump heading to Miami before classified documents court date as officials brace for potential unrest. Trump to appear in a Miami federal courthouse amid ramped-up security. As Kiev's counteroffensive heats up, Washington holds its breath. Native American adoptions can give tribal families priority, Supreme Court rules. Justice Department releases scathing federal report on Minneapolis police. A barista fought to unionize her Starbucks. Now she's out of a job. How government rules for classified papers could help Trump delay his trial. FBI resisted opening probe into Trump's role in January 6th for more than a year. Hunter Biden reaches deal to plead guilty in tax and gun case. Schumer launches all-hands-on-deck push to regulate AI in speech. A year after the fall of Roe v. Wade, a fragile new phase of abortion in America. Supreme Court says White House can continue to set deportation priorities. Wagner mercenaries inch closer to Moscow as Putin vows to stop rebellion. Wagner rebellion shows cracks in Putin's leadership, Blinken says. Officials question whether the truce will hold in Kremlin-Wagner standoff. Supreme Court rejects theory that would have meant radical changes to election rules. It's not just Mar-a-Lago. Trump charges highlight his New Jersey life at Bedminster. Supreme Court rejects affirmative action in college admissions. Supreme Court rejects Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. A headline for every day of July 2023. Trump pressed Arizona Governor Ducey to overturn 2020 election, people familiar with call say. Supreme Court notched major conservative victories, but struck notable compromises in key cases. Israel invades West Bank City with about 1,000 troops, killing at least 8. A potential prisoner swap for Gershkovich has been discussed, Kremlin says. Accounts and analysis of Greece migrant boat tragedy cast doubt on Coast Guard claims. Wagner chief returned to Russia after revolt, raising questions about Putin deal. Biden approves cluster munition supply to Ukraine. The words GOP presidential hopefuls used to stand out in a crowded field. They oppose the infrastructure law. Now some in the GOP want its cash. Turkey and Hungary's refusal to admit Sweden threatens NATO unity. NATO to invite Ukraine when conditions are met, Zelensky slams lack of a timeline. Inflation drops to lowest levels since March 2021 as economy cools. FDA approves first over-the-counter birth control pill in United States. Forcing people to work in deadly heat is mostly legal in the U.S. A gay couple ran a rural restaurant in peace, then new neighbors arrived. How a Saudi firm trapped a gusher of water in drought-stricken Arizona. Americans are spending down extra cash saved during the pandemic, data shows. Trump says he's a target of special counsel's January 6th probe. As the world sizzles, China says it will deal with climate its own way. Former aide expected before grand jury as Trump faces possible charges. Judge Cannon schedules Trump's classified documents trial for May 2024. Ukraine is now the world's most mined country. It will take decades to make it safe. A water catastrophe in California turns into a miracle. Israeli police clash with protesters following judicial overhaul. Putin appeared unable to act in first hours of rebellion. Hunter Biden's plea deal in jeopardy over questions about immunity. Trump needed $225 million. A little-known bank came to the rescue. Nearly $4 million in U.S. cut from Medicaid, most for paperwork reasons. In fight to lead America's future, battle rages over its racial past. DeSantis' campaign faces troubling signs in his home state as Trump dominates. Atlanta braces for possible indictments for Trump and allies in 2020 election investigation. A headline for every day of August 2023. Trump committee is nearly broke, plus other key takeaways from campaign filings. Trump conspiracy charges get to core of threat to democracy. Trump to appear in D.C. court to face 2020 election charges. Ukraine strikes Russian port in Novorossiysk. Nation lacks a unifying voice in aftermath of Trump charges. Ukraine's elite forces rely on technology to strike behind enemy lines. Fake elector plot raised concerns over legal peril, indictment shows. The beach town that could help decide the future of wind power on the East Coast. Ohio voters reject higher bar for altering Constitution, a win for abortion rights supporters. At least 36 killed in Hawaii wildfires, Maui officials say. Lahaina confronts unbearable reality as hometown refugees band together. Hawaii utility faces scrutiny for not cutting power to reduce fire risks. In Senator Tuberville's state, one base feels the effect of his military holds. The Smithsonian amassed a racial brain collection for decades. Trump and 18 allies charged in Georgia probe. As Georgia Republicans rebuke Trump, they are lonely voices in GOP. How a fight over immunity unraveled Hunter Biden's plea deal. American democracy is cracking. These forces help explain why. She's a Republican gun owner. Now she's pleading with GOP lawmakers for change. Ahead of Maui visit, Biden's governmental and personal response scrutinized. Many long COVID symptoms linger even after 2 years, new study shows. Trump vows massive new tariffs if elected, risking global economic war. A sex educator in Michigan refused to be shamed, then came the backlash. Putin offers condolences, calls Prigozhin a talented person who made serious mistakes. This latest COVID variant could be the best yet at evading immunity. A small-town feud in Kansas that sent a shock through American journalism. 5,000 pilots suspected of hiding major health issues. Most are still flying. Biden's course for U.S. on trade breaks with Clinton and Obama. Biden administration names 10 prescription drugs for price negotiations. Storm races north after Florida landfall. White House asks Congress for short-term funding extension to avert shutdown. A headline for every day of September 2023. Highways are the next anti-abortion target. One Texas town is resisting. Abortion fight unites the left and rattles the right in key Wisconsin battleground. Home insurers cut natural disasters from policies as climate risks grow. Marines top general ruthlessly rides out Tuberville's military hold. A new era of climate-linked disease threatens humanity. The unexpected reasons that extreme heat is so dangerous for those with schizophrenia. SBA program upended in wake of Supreme Court affirmative action ruling. China's military seeks to exploit U.S. troops, veterans, general warns. More than 1,000 dead as powerful earthquake hits Morocco. More than 2,000 dead in Morocco earthquake, king quiet in disaster's aftermath. Nearly 2,500 dead, officials accept some search and rescue. Thousands missing and feared dead after floods submerge eastern Libya. Escaped murder convict is caught, ending 13-day nightmare in Pennsylvania. DeSantis took undisclosed private flights and lodging through wealthy donors. Historic UAW strike underway. Bashing COVID boosters, DeSantis contrasts with Trump and worries health experts. The scorched earth activist trying to take down Hunter Biden. U.S. and Iran trade prisoners, a major breakthrough for the bitter adversaries. India and Canada expelled diplomats over accusations New Delhi killed Sikh separatist. Garland faces lawmakers' questions on Hunter Biden and Trump trials. Zelensky visits Congress ahead of trips to the White House and Pentagon. UAW to expand strike to 38 GM and Stellantis sites, but not Ford. Misinformation research is buckling under GOP legal attacks. As possible shutdown nears, a disconnect between political rhetoric and budget reality. Hollywood studios and writers reach tentative deal to end nearly 5-month strike. Pandemic-era boom changes the face of American homeschooling. Inside the vast digital campaign by Hindu nationalists to inflame India. U.S. government starts notifying federal employees a shutdown may be imminent. Dianne Feinstein, centrist stalwart of the Senate, dies at 90. Government shutdown just hours away as House GOP scrambles for a deal. A headline for every day of October 2023. Congress averts shutdown with last-minute scramble. Pediatricians and parents struggle to get updated COVID vaccine for kids. An epidemic of chronic illness is killing Americans in their prime. McCarthy ouster exposes the Republican Party's destructive tendencies. How red state politics are shaving years off American lives. The final 11 seconds of a fatal Tesla autopilot crash. Netanyahu says we are at war after Hamas attack. Israel formally declares war, combined death toll passes 900. Israel orders siege of Gaza Strip. Israel says border secured, army to go on the offensive. Israel forms unity government as troops mass near Gaza. Humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza. Israel says 1.1 million residents must leave North Gaza Strip. Gaza residents flee Israel's expected ground assault. Gaza crisis deepens as Israel plans attacks. Standoff at Egyptian border blocks aid, passage as conditions in Gaza worsen. Biden to visit Israel as humanitarian crisis in Gaza intensifies. As U.S. stands with Israel, region seethes. Jordan won't seek a third vote, backs plan to empower interim speaker. UN chief at Egypt Gaza crossing expresses frustration at blocked aid. Aid trucks cross into Gaza, providing first relief to besieged area. Documents found on fighters reveal Hamas capabilities and bloody plans. Ukrainian spies with deep ties to CIA waged shadow war against Russia. Released hostage was held in spiderweb of damp Gaza tunnels. House expected to vote on Mike Johnson, GOP's fourth nominee for Speaker. Massive manhunt underway after gunman kills at least 16. U.S. hits Iran-linked sites in Syria. Surgeons enter Gaza. Israel says ground offensive to continue. Communications blackout leaves Gaza cut off. Internet partially restored in Gaza. Israel warns of long and difficult war. Early stages of Israeli ground assault in Gaza shrouded in secrecy. Strikes on refugee camp leave hundreds of dead and injured, Gaza Health Ministry says. A headline for every day of November 2023. Injured Palestinians cross into Egypt, foreign nationals next. Hundreds of foreign nationals set to exit Gaza, UN condemns refugee camp attacks. Hezbollah leader warns Israel all possibilities on the Lebanese front are open. Blinken in Jordan, UN says strike hits school sheltering families. Blinken again calls for humanitarian pause to conflict. Trump testifies, is repeatedly instructed to stay on topic. Saudi spending spree, influx of Middle Eastern money is reshaping global sports. Abortion rights advocates win major victories in Ohio, Kentucky, and Virginia. The major takeaways from the third Republican debate. Fighting rages around Gaza's hospitals as U.S. cautions over civilian losses. The librarian who couldn't take it anymore. Strain of Israel-Gaza war engulfs an idyllic New York City suburb. Speaker Mike Johnson faces first test as government shutdown looms. House to vote on GOP plan to avert government shutdown. Israeli forces raid Al-Shifa hospital, calling it a targeted operation against Hamas. Terror on repeat. How Hamas exploited Israel's reliance on tech to breach barrier. After affirmative action, a white teen's Ivy hopes rose, a black teen sank. The fierce battle over junk fees that cost consumers billions of dollars a year. Future of OpenAI thrown into chaos as Microsoft scoops up ousted CEO Sam Altman. The far right toppled McCarthy over spending. What has it gotten them? Israel says fighting pause will extend a day for every 10 more hostages released. Timeline announced for pause in hostilities, transfer of hostages and prisoners. Hamas releases 13 Israeli and 12 Thai hostages, the first freed during pause. Captives exchange in doubt after Hamas says it will delay. Red Cross receives 17 people in third group of hostages, IDF says. Pause in fighting to be extended, Qatar says. More people are dying in Puerto Rico as its healthcare system crumbles. New CDC life expectancy data shows painfully slow rebound from COVID. Whistleblower alleges failures in medical care at U.S. border facilities. A headline for every day of December 2023. Rep. George Santos expelled from Congress. Trump pardoned them, now they're helping him return to power. Israel appears to shift focus to southern Gaza, U.S. urges civilian protection. Miscalculations and divisions marked offensive planning by the U.S. and Ukraine. In Ukraine, a war of incremental gains as counteroffensive stalls. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy will retire from Congress at end of year. Key takeaways from the fourth Republican debate. Next presidential election could bring electoral college flaws to forefront. U.S. criticized over ceasefire veto. Israel says hostage rescue attempt failed. Tesla drivers run autopilot where it's not intended, with deadly consequences. Israel used U.S.-supplied white phosphorus in Lebanon attack. China is ramping up its ability to disrupt key U.S. infrastructure, officials say. Capitals and Wizards owner and Youngkin announce deal to move teams to Virginia. Images of stripped and humiliated Palestinians draw condemnation. War will take months, White House official says. IDF recovers bodies of 3 hostages. Confederate memorial at Arlington will be removed despite GOP opposition. Dozens of assisted living residents died after wandering away unnoticed. Biden said to be increasingly frustrated by dismal poll numbers. Underground zombie streams threaten to turn D.C. back into a real-life swamp. Trump disqualified from Colorado's 2024 primary ballot by state Supreme Court. Colon cancer is rising in young Americans. It's not clear why. More than 20,000 dead in Gaza, a historic human toll. From Dropout to King of the Cannibals, how Sam Altman took over Silicon Valley. Half of the challenge books returned to schools. LGBTQ books are banned most. U.S. struggles to revive Palestinian Authority for post-war Gaza role. Is climate change speeding up? Here's what the science says. After Sandy Hook, they voted no. Now these senators want new gun laws. India targets Apple over its phone hacking notifications. Russia shatters Ukraine holiday season with massive missile barrage. EPA promised to help communities with toxic air. They're still waiting. Led by Trump, GOP candidates take polarizing stances on race and history.